GABRIEL NADEAU DUBOIS is the parliamentary leader of Quebec Solidaire, and he has agreed to join us for the next couple of breaks to take your questions. So here we are, just a few months away from a provincial election in October. Some of you are thinking, okay, maybe you're angry, you don't want to vote Liberal, maybe you're not sure, you want to vote for another party, maybe it's a Conservative party, maybe it's Quebec Solidaire. So here's your chance to find out a little bit more about the party, about its platform, and about its leader, GABRIEL NADEAU, or co-leader, GABRIEL NADEAU DUBOIS. Monsieur Dubois, thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure.
Let's start off with a couple of things that we've been talking about a lot lately. They seem to be in the news. So obviously, Bill 96, your party will support the bill, even though so many people have raised concerns over how wide-ranging it is. So why do you support it?
Because we think French deserves to be protected in Quebec, deserves to be well protected. It's been a long time since Bill 101 hasn't been modernized. We think that bill does some great things, but it's true to say that there are also problems with this bill. We have fought, my colleague Robert has fought inch by inch with Mr. Jean Barrette to try to better that bill. We had some success. We did not win all our fights, but we still think that at the end of the day, that bill gives a better protection for French in Quebec.
By the way, let me just stop and ask people. I said you're going to take questions. You can call now, 790-0800, if you have a question for GABRIEL NADEAU DUBOIS of Quebec Solidaire. Get a place in line, and we'll get to your calls as well. Natasha?
You can also text to 514-800. And while we're talking about language issues, we got this text that says, I would like to know where he learned to speak such good English, and if you feel like less of a francophone when you use English for work, as you're doing right now. And then they also raise the question here, do you assume that other francophones who speak English at work are less Quebecois because of it? Because that seems to be the CAQ stance.
No, I think it's a good thing for francophones to be able to speak French. I think being bilingual is a tool in the modern world, and I think we should give the chance to every francophone to be able to learn English. That's why there are English courses in the curriculum in the French schools. But I do think that the opposite is also true. So I do think that it's a good thing for a lot of Anglophones to learn French. I think it's also a tool for them. I think bilingualism is not only good for Francophones. I think Anglophones too deserve to learn French. They deserve, because they also deserve to have access to all the jobs in Quebec that require to understand and to speak French. That's why we're not against the fact that English courses will be given in English Cégep. It's because I think being bilingual today in 2022 is a good thing, whether your mother tongue is French or English.
You know, you mentioned Ruba Gazelle. We spoke to her a couple of weeks ago, and when we found out that the Quebec Solidaire would, in fact, go along with Bill 96, but she brought up something I was not aware of. That's the fact that in the bill as it is presented now, businesses of 25 to 49 people would, of course, come under the franchisation law. She said you actually support that be even smaller, businesses of 10 people or more. Is that the case?
Yes, it is the case, because I think workers in Quebec have fought for decades to be able to find a job in French, and it's been difficult for us for generations. So today we need to be aware that there are a lot of small businesses, and that those small businesses need to be also under the French laws in Quebec. I think it's a matter of equity for all workers in Quebec, and I think it gives an equal opportunity to all people in Quebec to access the job market.
I actually disagree. I think it actually targets, family businesses, especially the ones that might be run by allophones or people who are new to this country. Do you not think that it's somehow a little discriminatory and a little overbearing to try and impose those rules on a small family business?
Why should a worker working in a small business have less rights than a worker working in a big business? I do think the rights of workers should be the same everywhere. So
when you say you mean the right to speak French is what you're saying?
Well, the right for French-speaking Quebecers to work in French. It's been a very tough fight for generations of French-Canadian workers to be able to access the job market in their tongue, in French. We all know that English is the mainstream language all around the world. And all around the world, there's a lot of people fighting for their right to to work in their language. It's true here for French, but if you look all around the world, you will see the same thing in the other countries. I do think diversity is something that makes us rich as a humanity. So when a language is threatened, it's legitimate for societies to say we are going to put in place rules to make sure that that language keeps on thriving. I am honestly not worried for the future of English around the world. It's a pretty dominant language. French is more threatened in Quebec. I think it's an objective fact, and I think it's legitimate for the Quebec society to say we are going to put rules to make sure that French keeps on thriving in Quebec. Those rules always have to be put in place while respecting the rights of the Anglophone minority. We always have been fighting for that at Quebec Solidaire. We also have to respect the rules of First Nations, and we have fought for that in the last weeks at Quebec Solidaire. But with those precisions, I think it's fair to say that it's totally legitimate for Quebec society to say, okay, we are going to put some rules to make sure that French will keep on surviving, and more than surviving, will thrive in the future years in Quebec.
By the same token, do you believe that English should be allowed to thrive in Quebec as it has for the past several hundred years as well, or not?
I do. I think it is important. It is very important that English-speaking Quebecers keep their historic and important rights. It's important that they keep their institutions, and not only that they keep them, it's important that those institutions are well funded and that this community is allowed to thrive and to succeed. We always have been saying that in Quebec Solidaire.
It makes me sad that we need legislation for a business of 10 people. Like, I'm thinking about myself, Monsieur Nadeau Dubois. Like, I immersed myself in working in places where I had to speak French, and that's part of the reason why I was able to become so excellent bilingual as I am today. And I can't help but think that, some Francophones might very much like to immerse themselves in a Spanish-speaking environment, an Arab-speaking environment, an English-speaking environment, so as to be able to enrich their, other languages as well. It makes me sad that we have to have legislation, but perhaps we should move on. When it comes to separation, something a lot of people are asking, we know the party's stance. Is your personal stance the same? You would like Quebec to be separate from the rest of Canada?
I think we have to change the political system in Quebec. I think we have to do the reconciliation with First Nations, and in order to do that, we need a new constitution in Quebec. So we need a new country to make sure we are going to succeed in changing that system, in fighting climate change, in fighting social injustice. That's why we think, and I think at Quebec Solidaire, that we need to do a new political pact with First Nations, create the first non-colonial country in North America. Mm-hmm. Personally, I think it's quite an enthusiastic perspective if it's done in the respect of everyone in Quebec.
Can you do it, though, within the framework of Canada right now?
I do not think it is possible. I do think we live in a colonial and monarchist system, and I do not think that is compatible with the project of a green, fair, and just Quebec that we support at Quebec Solidaire.
Let me ask you something, just to go back to what Natasha was bringing up before. Are you not at all concerned, and yes, it's been a long time since Bill 101 has been revised, although some might ask why do we need to revise it, but are you not worried that once these rules come into place, that some businesses, particularly exporting businesses who do their business, by the way, around the world, not just in Quebec and not just in Canada, some of them will look at this and say, you know what, it just doesn't make sense. I don't want to do this anymore. I will simply leave. I'll go across the border. I'll go somewhere else, just like they did 50 years ago when Bill 101 came into force.
I do think businesses in Quebec are used to do business in a society where French is the common language. And I do think the vast majority of businesses already accept it and respect our language laws. Sometimes they have to be reminded to respect those laws, but the vast majority of them do accept that, just like I think that the vast majority of Quebecers accept that. I do think there is a way to protect French and to make sure that French thrives without attacking anyone, without pointing fingers to anyone. And I am honestly very sad to see that this bill has been instrumentalized on both sides of the debate by people trying to say that it's the end of the world. I am seeing on one side the Coalition Avenir Québec having a lack of compassion for immigrants in that bill in a lot of aspects. I do see the Coalition Avenir Québec refuse to hear the demands of the First Nation. This is a problem, and we have been denouncing that at Quebec Solidaire. Mm-hmm. But on the other side of the debate, you also have people, fringe groups inside the Anglophone community that are using that bill to try to recreate the old and vitriolic conflicts of the past between Francophone and Anglophone. Mm-hmm. And we do not see things like that in Quebec Solidaire. We think it is possible to talk together. It is possible to protect French without attacking Anglophones. And that's what we've been doing, working on that bill since day one. It is not a perfect bill. Of course, we didn't write it. It's the bill of François Legault and Simon Cholin Barrette. We would have written it very differently. But at the end of the day, we need to make a decision. We need to vote on it. And we think, at the end of the day, this is a bill that protects French. But we will keep fighting to make sure that First Nations are heard. We will keep fighting to modify the bill to make sure that the delay of 6 months that is right now written in the bill for immigrants to receive services in French will be extended to 3 years. We will continue to do those fights, but we will also continue to say that we think it's legitimate for Quebec as a society to protect its language.
We are joined this half hour by GABRIEL NADEAU DUBOIS. He is the co-leader of Quebec Solidaire, outlining some of their plans, positions, heading up to an election coming up in October. We want to give you an opportunity to ask your question of him. 790-0800. Let us know what you'd like to ask. Let's start off with Frank on line one. Frank, you're on with Mr. GABRIEL NADEAU DUBOIS. Go ahead.
Thank you, Aaron. I really wish I knew where to start. But first of all, if you repeat something enough, like the Journal de Montréal does, like every politician does, it becomes reality. But I really like Mr. Nadeau Dubois to show me exactly where the French language is in decline in Quebec, exactly what the language people speak at home. Is that the thing they point at? I don't know. But I drove from Montreal to the Saguenay on business, and trust me, the minute you drive outside of a 25-block radius of downtown Montreal, good luck to hear a word that's not French anywhere. So I'm not sure where this decline is happening other than in fantasy land. Secondly, as a parent, could you imagine I'm a parent and I tell my kids, Dad, I'd really like to go to this school, or I'd really like to take these courses because I'd really like to become something great in the world. And I say, no, you cannot do that because the government knows best. You are not allowed to go to English school. You're not allowed to learn that language to the fullest that you can learn because we want to make sure that you stay in Quebec and that you cannot reach your full potential in life. Thirdly, can you imagine when I tell my kids, oh, by the way, good luck, because you'll never be premier of the place you live in. You'll never be chief of police of the place you live in. Okay,
Frank, I'm going to stop you right there because I want Mr. Nadeau Dubois to respond. So, Mr. Dubois, it's yours. What do you say?
Well, I do think that the language spoken at home is not the good way to measure the decline of French because the importance, and that's our philosophy in Quebec Solidaire, is not the way that people conduct themselves or the language they speak in their private life. The language people speak in their private life is their private business. What's important is the future of French as the common language in Quebec. And what we are witnessing since a few years now, it's a return of more and more employers, businesses, requiring on a mandatory basis people speaking English to have a job in Quebec. And that's a step backwards. I repeat that I do think that on an individual basis, it's a good thing for Francophones to learn English. I had that opportunity as a young man, and I'm very and it's a tool now in my personal toolbox to be able to speak English. So being bilingual is not a problem on an individual basis. But to see more and more employers, sometimes for very funny reasons, asking workers to speak English or to know English to access a job in French in Quebec, I do think it's a problem.
Okay.
And I do think we need to defend the rights of people to have a job in French in Quebec. This has been an historic fight of generations of French-Canadian workers, and I think we need to defend that heritage.
I want to move on.
It's a matter of social justice.
I understand.
And I will give you one more example. A lot of immigrants come in Quebec. For example, Northern African immigrants. They come in Quebec because they think they will be able to work in French, which is sometimes their second language, and they sometimes don't know English. And sometimes they are very surprised to see that when they come here, they cannot get a job because employers ask them to speak English to get that job. So it's also a matter of social justice for immigrants who do not speak English all the time. Some of them want to work in French, and some employers tell them, sorry, it's not possible.
Okay,
I do not think it's a good thing.
Forgive us for interrupting. We just want to try and get a couple more callers in here. Thank you for that call, Frank, and that question. Let's go to Victoria now. What's your question for Monsieur Nadeau Dubois, Victoria?
Yes. Bonjour tout le monde. Good afternoon, everyone. My parents came from Greece in the 1950s. I was 6 years old, and I was playing with French-Canadian children in a French neighborhood. I fell in love with the French language. And after I graduated from McGill in L'Université de Montréal, I started teaching the language as French as a second language.
Okay, Victoria, I'm going to ask you if you could just frame the question for Monsieur Nadeau Dubois, because we have other calls.
I just want to tell Monsieur Nadeau that French, like all languages, is like a musical instrument. If you don't practice it, you will lose it. You can take 5 languages or 20 languages. That doesn't guarantee you that you will speak the language. So please support us and vote against Bill 96.
Thank you, Victoria. Let me try get Sebastian on here before we run out of time. Sebastian, do you have a question for Mr. Nadeau Dubois?
Yes, I do. Thanks. Bonjour, Mr. Nadeau. Il y a des chances que je vais te poser la question en français, mais je vais te parler en anglais. Je vais la poser en anglais en plus. Okay, Mr. Nadeau, this is the thing. I don't understand how, no matter the bill, how you guys are going to regulate communication, okay? We live in Canada. We live in the world, okay? I can speak to you in Spanish also. My question is, how do you regulate when I work? Because I have a small business, and at work, we get our point across. Sometimes on va parler en français. Yes, ça se peut qu'on switch en anglais. But if the job's getting done and everyone's working and the communication is there, why would that affect anyone working? If there's a discrimination on someone not getting hired for any type of things, that will be heard. But how do you regulate communication for good communication, no matter you're speaking French, English, Spanish, Chinese, etc.?
Mm-hmm. Monsieur Nadeau, are you there?
Yes. I was waiting for you to pass me the puck, like we say in French.
Bon, okay.
It is a good question, and let's be honest here. This is not a matter of having a government agent in every office and making sure that at every time of the day, every worker never speaks a word of English with its colleague. I think that it's not what anyone is saying. What we're saying is that it's a right, and it's a hard-fought right for workers in Quebec to be able to work in their language. It was not like that at the time of my grandfather, for example. So we need to protect that right of Francophone workers to work in their language. But if a job actually demands the understanding or the speaking of English, if it's really the case, there is absolutely no problem for employers to demand it before hiring someone. But what we've been witnessing in the last years is a strong tendency to ask for more and more jobs to know English, and sometimes it is not 100% legitimate and it's not 100% necessary. That's why we need to be able to have nuanced discussions on that issue. And if you give me 1 minute more, I will. It's important for me to say that I understand the lack of trust between a lot of English-speaking Quebecers and the Coalition Avenir Québec government. This government has not taken care of the relationship between Anglophone and Francophones in Quebec since they were elected. So I do understand the lack of trust. I understand the skepticism, the even very strong skepticism of a lot of people in the English-speaking community in Quebec. And it saddened me to see that government has created this hole between the communities. I do think we should be able to work together, and that's what we have tried to do in that very polarized debate at Quebec Solidaire. We really tried to be the voice of moderation and reason in that debate because it's an important debate for Quebec.
Yet at the same time, and we're going to wrap it up because we're going to be late, you realize that, based on a lot of people we talk to and the callers who call this radio station, you voting for Bill 96 when there's so much in that bill that to these people, including, when we talk about this to us as well, that simply does not make sense, is too wide-ranging. Search and seizure, there's so many elements, yet you support the bill. And I think that rubs a lot of people the wrong way.
Like I say, I understand the skepticism and I understand the lack of trust towards the government. It is not our bill. We would not have written it that way. But at the end of the day, we do think it's important in Quebec for French workers to be able to work in French.
Understood.
That's why we will vote for the bill.
That's fair, but if it's a flawed bill,
we look forward to making sure that the mistakes made in that bill will be corrected in the years to come.
We have to wrap up. I have one last thing to ask you. The Liberals introduced a new candidate to take over for Pierre Khan, Matt Royal. She said the day she was introduced, she is against Bill 96 and Bill 21, among other things. The Premier called her out on Twitter and said she is anti-nationalist for those views. Is she anti-nationalist because she opposes those bills?
Well, we are against Bill 21 in Quebec Solidaire. We are in favor of Bill 96. So I don't know if we also fall under that the category of anti-nationalist people in the mind of François Legault. Maybe you should ask him. What I do think is that it's really sad to have a premier in Quebec. And it's more than sad. It's really a problem to have a premier in Quebec that always tries to distinguish who's a real Quebecer and who really defends Quebec. We have important debates in Quebec. We do not always agree. And those two topics are sensible topics, but we should never say or even discreetly or even indirectly, we should never try to say that people are less Quebecers because they have a position that is different from ours in those issues or that they do not defend Quebec.
GABRIEL Nadeau Dubois of Quebec Solidaire, thank you so much for your time. Very much appreciated.
It's a pleasure.